Hello, Music Multiverse listeners, and welcome to Beyond Your Radio's Unknown Sundays. It's time to talk about a band, an artist, or something in the music multiverse that might be relatively unknown or missed for our watchers, our collectors, and listeners out there might be interested in because it could take them down a rabbit hole, past or present. Please remember that this is also an extension of the article section where I've written and created links, etc., and pictures at beyondyourradio.com. So if you want the full detail there written by me, it's there. This Sunday, a very late 1980s, very late 1989 maybe, comes in with a heavy saxophone, a completely unique bass player, and delivery that goes slightly unnoticed, but that's not for good. I use the word good. In fact, artists like Les Claypool, Josh Homme, and others sing the praises of this murky dream trio that pulled in haunting jazz influence and alternative to make some of the most interesting music of the 90s that might be responsible for many grungists, alternativists, listeners out there turning toward avant-garde jazz, odd signatures in music. Enter the Sandman's creation, Morphine, on Unknown Sundays 2024. You know, when you think of the grunge time period, it's, what filled college radio and regular radio. I don't think my ears were quite ever the same since this album I picked up in a one used bin promotional copy. Now, the album was called Cure for Pain by a band called Morphine. It was this eccentric kind of slow groove, not alternative rock that was coming from it. Not really having any concept of what I was going to be hearing. It threw me. The band, this is their second album, and it's kind of odd that I would not have known who they were. There's an explainable reason why. So, in 1992, their little-known first album called Good was probably, not in a great listening path. By albums like Automatic for the People and REM, you had Little Earthquakes from Tori Amos, which I was totally listening to. Core from Stone Temple Pilots had come out. Angel Dust from Faith No More, so you got that crowd. Fully Completely by the Tragically Hip. Well, yeah, I was definitely all over that. Not to mention a certain soundtrack had a monumental single remake, The Bodyguard, right? And of course, that had Joe Cocker, Sass Jordan, a bunch of other people on it too. So there were a lot of other albums in the way, especially in the United States, that would normally break most bands and not get them played. So simply titled Good was not something I had on my radar, but I should have. Oh, should I have? But it's never a bad thing when you come to things late, especially something this superlative, in my opinion. It happens a lot, and probably more so today with all the dumping of albums and music over this digital abyss we have, right? So what am I hearing exactly? If you're not a cultist of Morphine, that doesn't sound quite right, does it? First of all, you get a saxophone entry that's, I don't know, it's like getting into a club. Donna, where it starts in this, that gives entry to Buena.
Some people want to make a change. Well, I know how to make it go away. You see, I met a devil in Buena. And since I met the devil, I've been the same. Oh, no.
Now, which simply percussive acoustic guitar, which is kind of a guitar riff that you wouldn't expect, that sucks you in until you hear Mark Sandman's voice. And now it's coming from the back of the room, you think, right? Even he says it's coming from the back of the room. And it's something good. And on top of that, he's something important when he speaks. And it has a killer saxophonist at his devilish beck and call, and it just makes the worshiping immediate. It's something you'd never heard at that time. Something like this should be all wrong. It should. It's saxophone and alternative, and but the pace, the bass, and of course the expressive existential saxophone within this alternative setting, it's groove, it's substance, it's creativity right up and into the final song, which is actually called Miles Davis's Funeral, which shockingly brings us to this solemn back to acoustic, a simple shaker, acoustic, and maybe a patent of the drums. Jazz. Wow, right? God damn. Hook, line, and sinker. Let the search for morphine begin. Wait, that sounds wrong too. Let's talk about Mark Sandman for a paragraph here. The trippy, murky slide basses, we'll call it. That's right. He's got this instrument. It's not even a bass. I think it's got 2-3 strings to it, and he's just using a slide on it. That's completely obtuse, and he even created other instruments too. He's an icon in the Massachusetts scene at this point. A multi-instrumentalist. He plays guitar, plays piano. He's got keyboards. And again, he's created an instrument or two. Then there's that baritone, deep vocal and hollowing recording process that lured the lyrical content directly into this trippy ether that's whirled around in my audio senses like a dream, right? A dreaming, if you will. Yeah, that sounds right. Hence the band's name. And somehow, doesn't that seem to fit directly into his name? Of course it does. I'm sure it's no coincidence that he was also a pretty good comic illustrator from what's in his biography. So it's very assured that Mark Sandman was drawn into his life with purpose, presence, and complete absorption into the character of Morpheus, right? The Sandman, king of dreams. Spilling out into a music format that was beguiling and uniquely touched by the sensuous enormity of haunting jazz. There's also a heavy tragedy that's wrapped up in this. So in his life, not only was he robbed and stabbed in a cab, he also lost his brothers 18 months apart, younger, which obviously there's nothing that would not take its toll on you from that, right? It's obviously weighs heavy on the overall character, and he is a non-limelight frontman that he appeared to be. It's also lives in those lyrical, autobiographical probability of the lyrics. No question, heavy wore the frontman's life crown, and it showed often, and if you were a fan following, you knew it too. Chain smoker and more than likely drug user, which ultimately could have been the cause of his death on stage during a performance from a major heart attack. Let's move to the saxophonist and the electricity and mind-melding funky groove and alternative grip it held on my ears, as well as those in the music community. This is all Dana Cawley. And how he just was at one with the musical mindset, bass line, and alternative movements that was going on with this frontman, whether it was patiently waiting for his instrument's chance and moment to pounce or prance or dance, plod, whatever, or sometimes he just led it like he was Jethro Tull. I Had My Chance is one of those perfect examples of him leading the quality. And the exploratory disposition of a song as it follows. He even played 2 saxophones at once, so that's the legend. Obviously, I didn't get to see it, so I don't know. And when you're topping that off with a bassist 2-string slide, weird octave tuning on it, completely made up guitar called the tritar. I think it only had 3 strings, and the accompaniment of organ, keys, piano. You're in the what the fuck kind of moment, and that's where this band's whole signature of sound lies, and it's completely unique. I don't think it's been duplicated. It shouldn't. It remains incomprehensible in my opinion. There's no question that the length of creativity and companionship that Dana and Mark and Mr. Conway could have wound up transforming into, especially as the music multiverse and universe just, metastasized over those years after the 1990s were over. However, it's great to hear him in a very cool offshoot called Vapors of Morphine, which were originally called the Members of Morphine, kind of like the Vapors of Morphine better. It shares some similarities, but does allow further instrumentation and accompaniments.
Sleep by the riverside. Do the dropout mumble when the cops come running high. It's a dropout mumble and it ain't discreet. All these kids living on the street. Well, the man don't allow me to sleep out indoors.
That are kind of interesting, which I'm sure continues to be a passion, as well as something that Mark Sandman's Ghost would approve of and appreciate, as well as some of the lyrical content, because it does have that kind of signature. It's very good, and it's very worth the rabbit hole of exploring those two albums. They are mentioned as I leave this. Perhaps a bit more accessible because too it has a rock and roll environment as opposed to the chances and odd time signatures and expressions of that of Morphine. Here's the heartbreaking point, though, okay? At least for me and other musicians and the overall grand landscape of things, I don't think that Morphine altogether in the albums they have sold 1 million copies. That's heartbreaking to me. It's just truly an unknown to me how people couldn't gravitate to a band of this uniqueness, but it's always something lovely to share on these unknown Sundays. And in this case, definitely one of my all-time favorite discoveries that opened up another world for me. That's right. I credit this band for pulling me directly into avant-garde jazz and all the options that come with it. The signature of the saxophone and the drum work opened my ears to a universe of talented cats, that could throw down and then some. Not to mention the past it opened up beyond the radio and accessible favorites that are always there. This is what music and musicians are supposed to do for our world and our ears. Bring more, feed, and be fed. Like Josh Holm is saying about how he was a bassist and it inspired him. Morphine was always that, Today you've got these bands that just are looking for some ultimate money glory hole and free ticket to some promised land that Morphine always knew was an empty box that never truly existed unless you were creating and ultimately delivering on stage. Morphine and Mark Sandman will always be in my musical gratitude as well as my yearly playlist. I'm sure they're going to show up on Beyond Your Radio in the future and articles and episodes, as they should. 5 stars forever in my ear. If you don't know them, put them in your ear today. It's not just good, it's buena. Albums of Morphine in my collection in 1992, good. In 1993, Cure for Pain. That was followed by Yes in 1995. Then in 1997, Like Swimming, which does add a bit more keyboard and craziness. Really good album. That might be my favorite. Hey, maybe I got to do a catalog review show. Who knows? And then finally, The Night in 2000. There are some compilations I suggest too. The compilation B-sides and otherwise in 1997. Sandbox, the music of Mark Sandman in 2004. And At Your Service Anthology in 2009. Now, Vapors of Morphine. There are 2 albums of theirs, and the first album is A New Low in 2016, followed by in 2021, Fear and Fantasy. If you go into that rabbit hole and stuff, Dana has been in other bands too, notably a couple of others. So those are nice rabbit holes to go down too. I did not get to those at this point. So did you know Morphine? What was your impression? Leave us a comment or two. Always love to hear where people are on this. This is a personal favorite of mine and a high recommendation. Like and please subscribe if you haven't to our channel yet. We're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course. It's all about bands, artists, albums, anything we can get our hands on in any genre and style. Join us next week for a different kind of king of guitar. Go Beyond Your Radio with us, a real music appreciation channel. Thanks for watching. Happy listening.